I learned the absolute hardest lesson of my 53 years on this earth when I lent my sister rent money, then saw her on vacation the next day. It wasn't just the money, though $3,000 is a fortune when you are earning it one sorted envelope at a time. It was the sheer, unadulterated audacity of it. I had drained my emergency savings, the money I had been scraping together for months to fix the leaking roof over my head, because my baby sister swore she was 24 hours away from being thrown out onto the street. She cried real tears, hyperventilating on my sofa, clutching a final notice eviction letter, swearing on our mother's grave that she just needed a lifeline. I gave her the rope to pull herself up, and less than 18 hours later, I watched her use that same rope to tie a hammock between two palm trees in Cabo San Lucas. That little umbrella in her cocktail didn't just garnish a drink, it pierced my soul. But Monique forgot one thing about her big sister. I don't just deliver the mail, I track everything. And if she thought she could spend my roof money on a beach trip, she was about to find out that I was the storm she couldn't outrun. Now, before I tell you how I turned a vacation into a collection agency visit, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and like this video. If you have ever let your heart write a check that your family's loyalty couldn't cash, or if you've ever been the responsible one who gets taken for a ride, you are in the right place. Pull up a chair, baby, because the tea is piping hot. My name is Viola. I'm a supervisor at the main distribution center for the United States Postal Service in Atlanta. I've been with the post office for 28 years. My knees click when it rains, my back aches by 2 p.m., and I have a tolerance for nonsense that is lower than the Mariana Trench. I've worked hard for everything I have. My house in Decatur isn't a mansion, but it's mine. I paid off the mortgage 3 years ago by picking up extra shifts during the Christmas rush and eating bologna sandwiches while my coworkers ordered takeout. I am the rock of my family. The matriarch by default since Mama passed 10 years ago. And then there is Monique. Monique is 42, but she acts 22. She is beautiful, I'll give her that. Smooth skin, a smile that lights up a room, and a spirit that refuses to be tethered by things like responsibility or consequences. She has floated through life on a cloud of charisma and my money. She's been a cosmetologist, a real estate agent, a life coach, and recently an influencer with 3,000 followers who mostly seem to be bots. I love her. She's my sister. But loving Monique is like hugging a cactus. You know you're going to get hurt, but you do it anyway because she's the only piece of Mama left. The crisis started on a Tuesday night. It was raining, one of those heavy Georgia thunderstorms that feels like the sky is trying to wash the sin off the pavement. I was sitting at my kitchen table, listening to the rhythmic drip, drip, drip of water hitting the plastic bucket I had placed in the hallway. That drip was the sound of my anxiety. My roof had sprung a leak 2 months ago, and I had been saving every spare dime to pay the contractor. I needed $4,000. I had $3,000 in my savings account. I was almost there. Just another month of overtime, and I could fix it. My phone rang, cutting through the sound of the rain. The screen flashed Monique Sis. I sighed, taking off my reading glasses. Monique never called on a Tuesday just to say hello. Hello? I answered, bracing myself. V, she was sobbing. Hysterical. The kind of crying where you can barely catch your breath. V, you have to help me. They're putting me out. They're putting me out on the street. Who is putting you out? I asked, my supervisor voice kicking in automatically. The landlord, Mr. Henderson. He's downstairs right now with the sheriff. He says if I don't have the back rent by tomorrow morning, he's changing the locks. V, I have nowhere to go. It's raining. I can't sleep in my car. I'll die out there. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew Monique was bad with money, but eviction? The sheriff? That was serious. Calm down, I ordered. How much, Monique? How much do you owe? $3,000, she choked out. It's 3 months' rent plus late fees. I had the money, V, I swear, but the car broke down and then the salon cut my hours and I just got behind. But I start a new job next week at the high-end spa in Buckhead. I can pay you back. I just need to survive tonight. $3,000. I looked at the notebook on the table where I tracked my budget. The roof fund. Exactly $3,000. Monique, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of the decision. That is a lot of money, You know I'm saving for the roof. You hear that dripping? That's my hallway. If I give you this, and it rains hard again, my ceiling is coming down. Please, V, she wailed. I'm your sister. Would you really let me sleep on the sidewalk? Mama told you to look out for me. She made you promise on her deathbed. That was the dagger. Mama, look after your sister, Viola. She ain't strong like you. Monique knew exactly where to twist the knife. I rubbed my temples, feeling the headache blooming behind my eyes. Come over, I said quietly. Bring the eviction notice. I need to see it. She arrived 20 minutes later, looking like a drowned rat. Her hair was wrapped in a silk scarf, her eyes were puffy and red, and she was shaking. She handed me a crumpled piece of paper. It looked legitimate enough to my tired eyes. Final notice to quit. Balance due $3,200. I only need $3,000, she sniffled, sitting on my plastic-covered sofa. I have $200 in my purse. V, please. I'll pay you back every cent with my first check. I can't lose my apartment. It's all I have. I looked at her. She looked broken. And despite everything, despite the years of borrowed 20s and 50s that never came back, I couldn't do it. I couldn't let my sister be homeless while I had money sitting in the bank. I was the big sister. It was my job to fix it. Okay, I said, standing up. Okay, stop crying. You'll help me? She looked up, hope flooding her face, making her look 10 years younger. I'm going to transfer the money, I said, feeling physically ill as I unlocked my phone. But Monique, listen to me. This is it. This is the roof money. If I do this, you are indentured to me. You pay me back every cent starting next month. No excuses. No, I forgot. You pay me before you eat. I will. I swear, V. I'll pay you back double. I love you so much. She threw her arms around me, hugging me tight. She smelled of rain and something else. Coconut? It was faint. Maybe a lotion, but it lingered. I ignored it. I opened my banking app. I transferred $3,000 from my savings to her account. Transfer complete. My savings balance dropped to $42.50. I felt a hollow pit open in my stomach. Go pay him, I said, exhausted. Right now, before the portal closes. I will. I'm doing it in the car. She kissed my cheek. You saved my life, V. You're an angel. Mama is smiling down on you. She ran out into the rain. I stood in the doorway, watching her taillights fade down the wet street. I felt a knot in my stomach, a deep, gnawing dread that I tried to dismiss as simple anxiety. I had done the right thing. Family first. The next day, Wednesday, was absolute hell at the distribution center. 2 sorting machines broke down within the first hour, 3 carriers called out sick, and the humidity in the warehouse was suffocating. By noon, I was sweating through my uniform, my feet were throbbing, and I had been yelled at by a customer who was angry that his Amazon package of dog food was delayed. Viola, take a break, my manager Dave said, walking by with a clipboard. You look like you're about to murder someone. I might, I muttered, wiping my forehead with a handkerchief. I just need coffee. I grabbed my lunch bag, a Tupperware of leftover collard greens and cornbread, and went to the break room. It was cool in there, at least. I sat down at the wobbly round table, exhaling a long breath that rattled in my chest. I needed a distraction from the chaos of the floor. I pulled out my phone. I opened Facebook. Usually, my feed is full of inspirational quotes from my church group, pictures of my friends' grandbabies, and recipes for sweet potato pie. It's a safe space. I scrolled idly. A recipe for smothered chicken, a video of a cat falling off a sofa, an advertisement for orthopedic shoes. Then I saw it. It was a post from Monique. Now, usually, Monique blocked me from seeing her wild night posts. She had me on a restricted list so I wouldn't lecture her, but she must have forgotten, or maybe she was just so excited she didn't care. The photo was high definition, bright, vivid. It was a selfie. Monique was wearing huge designer sunglasses and a wide-brimmed straw hat. She was holding a drink that was bright blue with a pineapple wedge and a little paper umbrella. Behind her was not the rainy, gray street of Atlanta. It was turquoise water, white sand, and the distinct jagged arch of the rock formations at Land's End. Location, Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Caption, sometimes you just gotta escape the negativity and live your truth. Blessed self-care boss babe, Cabo life. I stared at the phone. I blinked, thinking maybe the heat in the warehouse was making me hallucinate. I took off my glasses, cleaned them on my shirt, put them back on and looked again. It was still there. I zoomed in. In the reflection of her sunglasses, I could see a man. He was shirtless, holding a beer. I recognized that tattoo on his chest, a badly drawn lion. It was Dante, her on-again, off-again boyfriend. The DJ who hadn't had a gig since 2019. The man I had banned from my house because he stole a ham from my refrigerator last Thanksgiving. She wasn't evicted. She wasn't homeless. She was in Cabo. With my $3,000, with my roof. My hands started to shake, not a little tremble. A violent, rattling shake that nearly made me drop the phone onto the linoleum. I checked the timestamp on the post. 22 minutes ago. I checked the comments. Friend 1, yes, girl, you deserve it. Thanks, boo. Last-minute trip, but so needed. Last minute. The knot in my stomach untied itself and retied into a cold, hard stone of rage. It was a rage so pure it felt like clarity. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly against the floor. The other people in the break room looked up. Viola? Sarah, a sorter, asked. You okay? You look like you saw a ghost. I didn't see a ghost, I said, my voice low and terrifyingly calm. I saw a thief. I walked out of the break room. I walked straight to Dave's office. Dave, I said, standing in his doorway. I need to use my vacation time. Now? Dave asked, looking up from his computer. Viola, we're short-staffed. Can it wait until next month? No, I said, I have a family emergency. Is everyone okay? No, I said. My sister is suffering from a severe case of entitlement, and I need to go perform surgery. Okay, Dave said, sensing that arguing with me right now would be hazardous to his health. How long do you need? 3 days, I said. I have plenty of airline miles stacked up from the Union card. I'm leaving now. I walked out of the post office. I got in my sensible Toyota Camry. I sat in the parking lot and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. She thought I was stupid. She thought because I was old-fashioned and responsible, I was a mark. She thought she could cry some crocodile tears, take my hard-earned savings, and go party with a deadbeat on a beach while I sat here praying my roof didn't collapse. I pulled up my banking app again, $42.50. I pulled up my credit card app. I had a limit of $15,000, zero balance. I prided myself on that. I never carried debt. Today, I whispered to the empty car, we make an exception. I opened the Delta Airlines app. I knew Monique. She was predictable. She always flew Delta because she thought the snacks were better. If she booked last minute, she was probably on the morning flight out of Hartsfield-Jackson. But I wasn't just going to fly down there blindly. I needed intel. I needed to confirm the lie. I called Mr. Henderson, the landlord. I had his number because I had co-signed for her apartment 2 years ago, another mistake I had forgotten about until just now. Mr. Henderson, I said when he answered. This is Viola Davis, Monique's sister. Miss Davis? He sounded wary. Look, if this is about the security deposit. She told me you were evicting her yesterday, I cut in, that you were there with the sheriff. There was a pause, then a dry, confused chuckle. Evicting her? Miss Davis? Monique moved out 3 days ago. She broke her lease. She told me she was moving in with her boyfriend. She told me to keep the deposit to cover the last month's rent. She's gone. Key is under the mat. The sheriff hasn't been to that building in a year. The phone felt hot against my ear. It was all a lie. The eviction notice she showed me? A forgery. Probably something she mocked up on her laptop using a template she found on Google. She had planned this. She had moved out, scammed me for the cash to fund the trip, and bailed. Thank you, Mr. Henderson, I said. That is all I needed to know. I hung up. I looked at the photo again. The blue drink. The white sand. The audacity of 1,000 lions. I didn't cry. I had cried enough over Monique for a lifetime. I had saved her from bad boyfriends, bad jobs, and bad decisions for 20 years. But this wasn't a mistake. This was a robbery. I went home. I packed a carry-on bag. I didn't pack swimsuits or sunscreen. I packed my business clothes, a nice linen suit, my comfortable walking shoes, and a folder containing the bank transfer receipt and the copy of the lease agreement I had in my filing cabinet. I booked the next flight to Cabo. It left in 4 hours. It cost $800 on the credit card. I didn't care. I wasn't going on vacation. I was going on a collection run. I texted Monique one time. Hey, just checking in. Did you get the money to the landlord okay? I watched the bubbles appear. Monique, yes, thank God. He was so mean, but I paid him. I'm just unpacking boxes at the new place now. So tired. Phone is dying, might be offline for a bit. Love you, V. Unpacking boxes, I laughed. A short, sharp bark of a laugh in my empty kitchen. You're right, baby girl, I said, zipping up my suitcase. You are going to be offline, because when I get there, I'm cutting the cord. I drove to the airport. I walked through security with the determination of a woman on a holy crusade. Monique was in Cabo living her best life. She didn't know that her worst nightmare just boarded a 737 and was sitting in seat 14C, waiting for the beverage service. Cabo San Lucas is not built for women like me. It is built for honeymooners, college kids spending their parents' money, and people like Monique who think consequences are something that happen to other folks. When I stepped off the plane, the heat hit me like a wet towel, humid, sticky, and smelling of jet fuel and sea salt. I didn't stop to admire the mountains or the ocean. I adjusted my linen blazer, put on my sunglasses, and marched through customs with the efficiency of a priority mail package on a strict deadline. I had 4 hours of anger stored up from the flight, marinating in the cramped economy seat while a toddler kicked my spine. I was ready to explode, but I kept the lid on tight. You don't defuse a bomb by screaming at it. You cut the wires. First, I needed a location. I stood in the arrivals terminal, ignoring the taxi drivers shouting offers. Monique was smart enough not to tag the hotel in her post, but Dante was a man who thought subtlety was a type of cologne. I pulled up my phone and searched his name on Instagram. His profile was public, of course. There it was, a video posted an hour ago. Dante doing a belly flop into a pool that looked like it merged with the ocean. Location, the Riu Palace, all inclusive. I looked up the rates on my browser. $600 a night. My blood pressure spiked so hard I heard a ringing in my ears. They weren't just on vacation, they were living like royalty. On my roof money, on the sweat off my back. I hailed a taxi. The Riu Palace, I told the driver. And don't spare the horses. The ride took 20 minutes. I spent it staring out the window at the desert landscape, rehearsing what I was going to say. I had a speech prepared about responsibility, about family, about betrayal. But as we pulled up to the massive white gates of the resort, I realized speeches were for people who listened. Monique didn't listen. She only felt. I needed to make her feel this. I walked into the lobby. It was grand, open air, with marble floors and a view of the famous arch that Monique had posted. I walked straight to the front desk. Hola, the receptionist smiled. Checking in? Checking up, I said, flashing my most authoritative smile, the one I used when a carrier lost a scanner. My sister is staying here, Monique Davis. I wanted to surprise her. Could you tell me what room she's in? The receptionist hesitated. I cannot give out room numbers for security. I leaned in, lowering my sunglasses. Honey, I am the one paying for the room. I just flew 4 hours to bring her heart medication. She left her pills in Atlanta. You want to be the one to tell the paramedics why she didn't get them? A lie? Yes. But I figured Monique had been lying about her heart for years, so I was just following tradition. The receptionist's eyes went wide. Oh, of course. She is in room 402, but I believe she is down at the Infinity Pool bar. It is happy hour. Happy hour, I repeated, tasting the bile in my throat. Thank you. I didn't go to the room. I went to the pool. The resort was crowded. Music thumped from massive speakers, some terrible remix of a song I hated. People were dancing in the water, holding plastic cups. It was a scene of pure, unadulterated indulgence. And there, in the center of it all, holding court at a swim-up bar, were Monique and Dante. Monique was wearing a neon pink bikini that left nothing to the imagination and a wide-brimmed hat that probably cost $50. Dante was shirtless, wearing gold chains I knew were fake, laughing at something the bartender said. They looked happy. They looked carefree. They looked like two people who didn't owe a dime in the world. I walked to the edge of the pool deck. I was the only person wearing a suit. I looked like the IRS had come to the beach. I didn't yell. I didn't wave. I walked right up to the edge of the pool, directly behind where Dante was sitting on a submerged stool. I hope that drink tastes like asphalt, I said, my voice cutting through the bass of the music. Dante spun around so fast he nearly fell off the stool. He choked on his margarita, coughing violently. Monique turned slower. She lifted her sunglasses. When her eyes locked onto mine, her face went through a complex journey. Confusion, recognition, terror, and finally, the audacity to try and fake it. V? She squeaked. Viola? What what are you doing here? I'm unpacking, I said, crossing my arms. Just like you said you were doing in your text an hour ago. Remember? Unpacking boxes at the new apartment? The color drained from her face, leaving her looking ashy under the Mexican sun. People nearby stopped dancing. The music seemed to fade into the background. V, wait, she stammered, standing up in the water. I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Really? I asked, looking around. Because it looks like you took my $3,000, money I needed to keep the rain off my head, and bought yourself a tropical getaway with Mr. Unemployment over here. Hey, Dante protested, wiping tequila off his chin. Don't bring me into this, Viola. I didn't ask for the money. Shut up, Dante. I snapped without looking at him. You're eating the fruit. You're part of the crime. I turned back to Monique. Get out of the pool. V, you're making a scene, she hissed, looking around at the staring tourists. Everyone is looking. Good, I said. Let them look. Maybe they want to chip in for the roof repairs since you clearly don't care. Get out of the pool. Monique climbed out, wrapping a towel around herself, shivering despite the heat. Dante followed, looking like a scolded puppy. V, listen, Monique whispered, grabbing my arm. I shook her off. I was going to pay you back, I swear. I won a contest. This trip, it was a prize. A prize? I raised an eyebrow. Really? What contest? The lying to your sister sweepstakes? Because you just won first place. It was a promo. She lied, her eyes darting around. For the Instagram. They flew me out. I didn't spend your money. Then show me your bank account, I said, holding out my hand. Open your app, right now. Show me the $3,000 is still there. She froze. She bit her lip. That's what I thought, I said. You spent it. Every dime. I needed a mental health break, she exploded, the tears finally starting, the same fake tears she used on my couch 2 nights ago. You don't know the pressure I'm under, V. The eviction, it was so stressful. I needed to clear my head so I could focus on the new job. There is no eviction, I shouted, finally losing my cool. I called Mr. Henderson. You moved out. You broke the lease. You took the money and ran. The truth hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Monique shrank back. She knew she was caught. There was no spinning this. She started, then stopped. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't shingle my roof, I said. Money shingles my roof. How much is left? She looked at Dante. Dante looked at his feet. Monique, I warned, how much? We paid for the flights, she mumbled, and the all-inclusive package, and the upgrade to the ocean view. How much? $400, she whispered. $400. Out of 3,000 in 48 hours. I felt dizzy. I looked at the massive hotel, the blue water, the trays of food passing by. They had eaten my savings. They had drunk my security. I looked at Monique. I didn't see my baby sister anymore. I saw a stranger, a parasite. Okay, I said. The anger calcified into something colder, something strategic. Give me your purse. What? Your purse, Monique, the Louis Vuitton knockoff you dragged here. Give it to me. Why? She clutched it to her chest. Because I am seizing assets, I said. You spent my money on this trip? Fine. Then this trip belongs to me. I snatched the bag from her hands. She was too shocked to fight back. I dug through it. I found her wallet. I found her passport. I found her phone. Hey, you can't take my phone, she yelled. I paid for the data plan, didn't I? I said, shoving it into my pocket. I'm taking this too. I turned to Dante. Wallet, phone, passport, now. You can't do that, Viola. That's theft. Dante puffed out his chest. Theft? I laughed. It was a dark, dangerous sound. Dante, you are in a foreign country. You have a warrant in Georgia for unpaid traffic tickets. I looked it up on the way here. Do you really want me to call the federals and explain who you are? Or do you want to hand over the goods? Dante paled. He handed over his wallet and passport. Good, I said. Now, here is how this is going to work. Since I paid for this vacation, I'm going to enjoy this vacation. You two are going to go to the room 402, right? And you are going to pack your bags. Pack? Monique asked, tears streaming down her face. Where are we going? I don't know, I said, checking my watch. But checkout is in 10 minutes, because I'm going to the front desk and I'm changing the name on the reservation. You can't kick us out, Monique shrieked. We have nowhere to go. We don't have any money. You have $400, I reminded her. That should get you a nice hostel downtown, or maybe a tent on the beach. You like the beach, right? V, please, she grabbed my hands. Don't do this. It's dangerous out there. We don't speak Spanish. How will we get home? You have return tickets, I said, for Sunday. That's 3 days from now. You better hope you can make $400 last 3 days. Or maybe you can start a GoFundMe. You're good at begging. I pulled my arm away. Go pack, I ordered. If you aren't out of that room in 20 minutes, I'm calling security and telling them you're trespassing in my room. I turned and walked away. I walked back through the lobby, my heart pounding, clutching 2 passports and 2 wallets in my hands. I went to the front desk. Hola again, I said to the receptionist. There has been a change of plans. My sister and her companion have had a family emergency and need to leave. I will be taking over the remainder of the reservation. I need you to issue new keys and invalidate the old ones. Of course, she said, typing away. And the credit card on file? Keep it, I said. It's prepaid, right? Yes, ma'am. She handed me 2 new key cards. I walked to the elevator. I went up to the 4th floor. I waited in the hallway. 5 minutes later, the door to 402 opened. Monique and Dante came out, dragging their suitcases, looking like Adam and Eve getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden. Monique looked at me. Her eyes were red. I hate you, she hissed. You're evil. How can you do this to family? I didn't do this, I said, leaning against the wall. You did. I'm just balancing the books. Enjoy Cabo. They walked down the hall, dragging their bags, bickering with each other. I watched them go. Then I used the key card and entered the room. It was a mess. Clothes everywhere, empty bottles, wet towels on the floor. It smelled like coconut oil and bad decisions. I walked to the balcony. The view was incredible. The ocean stretched out forever, blue and deep. I sat down on the lounge chair. I took a deep breath. I had the room. I had their passports, which I would give back, eventually. I had reclaimed a fraction of the value. But as I sat there, looking at the view that cost me my roof, my phone buzzed. It was Monique's phone, actually. It was in my pocket. I pulled it out, a text message notification on the lock screen. Sender, Mr. Henderson. Message, Monique, I found the mold in the bathroom wall. You're lucky you moved out. That place is getting condemned anyway. But you still owe me for the carpet damage. $500. Don't make me call your sister again. I frowned. Mold? Condemned? I unlocked her phone. Her passcode was her birthday, obviously. I scrolled up. There were texts from a week ago. Monique, I can't breathe in here, Henderson. The mold is making me sick. Then move. I told you I'm tearing the building down in August. I stared at the screen. She hadn't just scammed me for a vacation. She had scammed me to get out of a condemned building she knew was going down anyway. And instead of using the money to secure a new safe place to live, she blew it on tequila. But then I saw another text from a contact named Tanya, spa manager. Tanya, Monique, stop asking. We fired you for stealing tips. Do not come back to the property. My stomach dropped. She didn't have a job starting next week. She was unemployed, homeless, and now stranded in Mexico because of me. I felt a twinge of guilt. Just a twinge. But then I looked around the luxury suite. I looked at the room service menu with the $40 burger. No, I wasn't going to save her this time. She needed to hit bottom. Real bottom. But before I could close the phone, another notification popped up. This one was an email. Not on Monique's account, but on Dante's. He had logged into his email on her phone. Subject, withdrawal confirmation. I opened it. BetMGM, withdrawal of $5,200 confirmed. Funds available on prepaid debit card ending in 94455. I froze. $5,000. Dante withdrew $5,000 yesterday? I scrambled to open Dante's Velcro wallet, which I had tossed on the bed. I ripped through the pockets. There, tucked behind his Georgia ID, was a black pre-debit card, ending in 4455. The rage that filled me then was different from the anger I felt toward Monique. Monique was a user, yes, but she was incompetent. She genuinely thought she was drowning, so she dragged me down with her. But Dante? Dante was a predator. He had watched Monique beg her sister for money, watched her cry, watched her destroy her relationship with me, all while he was sitting on a $5,000 nest egg he refused to touch. He let her take the fall. He let her be the villain. He was hoarding his cash while spending mine. I stood up. I picked up the black card. I picked up the phones. I'm not done, I whispered to the empty room. I walked out the door. I wasn't going to let them fade into the Cabo sunset. I was going to get my money back. I didn't have to look far to find them. Cabo San Lucas might be a sprawling beach town, but when you are two Americans with oversized luggage, no Spanish, and a bruised ego, you don't get very far in 20 minutes. I found Monique and Dante standing on the curb just outside the resort's main security gate, arguing. Or rather, Monique was screaming, and Dante was looking at his reflection in a parked car window, checking his teeth. I marched down the driveway, the black BetMGM debit card burning a hole in my pocket. The heat was starting to break as the sun dipped lower, but the fire inside me was just getting started. You said you had it handled. Monique was yelling, throwing her hands up. You said you knew a guy with a condo. Now you're saying we have to sleep at the airport? I said I knew a guy, Dante shot back, adjusting his gold chain. I didn't say he was home. Besides, your crazy sister took my wallet. How am I supposed to fix this without ID? You fix it by telling the truth, I said, stepping out from behind a palm tree. They both jumped. Dante looked like he wanted to run, but he eyed the heavy suitcases and realized he wasn't making a quick getaway. Viola, Monique sighed, wiping sweat from her forehead. She looked exhausted. The glamour of the influencer life had melted off, leaving just a tired woman in a damp swimsuit cover-up. Please, just give us the passports. We'll go to the airport. We'll wait for the Sunday flight. Just let us go. I'm not holding you hostage, Monique, I said, holding up the black card between two fingers. But I am holding the bank. Dante's eyes locked onto the card. His Adam's apple bobbed. That's mine, he said, stepping forward aggressively. Give it here, Viola. That's federal mail theft or something. It's not mail theft when I pulled it out of your Velcro wallet in Mexico, I said calmly. And honestly, Dante, I'm impressed. $5,200. Monique froze. She turned her head slowly to look at Dante. What did she say? She's lying, Dante shouted, his voice cracking. She's trying to break us up, Mo. Don't listen to her. I'm looking at the withdrawal confirmation email on your phone, Dante, I said, pulling his phone out of my other pocket. Sent yesterday. $5,000. Sitting right here on this card. While Monique was crying on my couch about being evicted, you were sitting on a nest egg. Monique stared at him. The betrayal washed over her face, stripping away the blind loyalty she had held for this man for 3 years. You have $5,000, she whispered. It's my investment fund. Dante yelled, backing away. It's for crypto. I couldn't touch it. It's seed capital. Seed capital? Monique shrieked. It was a sound that made the security guards at the gate look over. I begged my sister. I lied to my landlord. I lost my dignity. And you had $5,000 in your pocket? You let me pay for the flights? You let me pay for the drinks? I was going to pay you back when the coin pumped. Dante argued, as if that made any sense at all. You let me think we were broke. Monique lunged at him. She actually swung her purse at his head. He ducked, looking terrified. Ladies, I barked. Focus. They both stopped. Dante, I said, here's the situation. You owe Monique $3,000 for the trip expenses you mooched, and Monique owes me $3,000 for the loan. So by the transitive property of debt, you owe me $3,000. I ain't giving you nothing, Dante sneered, regaining a shred of false bravado. You can't make me. I know the pin, you don't. True, I said. I pulled out my lighter, the one I kept in my purse for sealing frayed uniform threads. I flicked it on. I held the flame an inch under the magnetic strip of the black card. What are you doing? Dante screamed. I'm melting the seed capital, I said. If I burn this chip and I have your passport and I have your phone, how exactly do you plan to access your money, Dante? You can't call the bank, you can't verify your identity. You'll be stuck in Mexico with $0 and a warrant waiting for you in Georgia. He watched the flame dance near the plastic. He sweated. Okay, he yelled. Stop, you're crazy. Your whole family is crazy. The pin, I demanded. 1, 2, 3, 4, he muttered. I stared at him. Of course it is. There is an ATM in the lobby, I said. We are going to walk there, together. You are going to withdraw the daily maximum, then you are going to Venmo me the rest until we hit 3,000. If you run, I burn the card. If you scream, I burn the card. Move. We marched back into the lobby like a funeral procession. Me in the lead, Dante sulking in the middle, Monique trailing behind, staring daggers at the back of his head. At the ATM, Dante punched in the numbers. He withdrew $800, the daily limit. He handed me the cash with a shaking hand. Now the app, I said, handing him his phone but hovering over his shoulder. He opened his banking app. He transferred $2,200 to my account. Ping. I checked my phone. The money was there. $800 cash. $2,200 digital. I had my roof money back. And I still had $400 of his money in my pocket from the refund I'd get on the hotel room if I checked out early. But I wasn't checking out early. Here, I said, handing Dante his passport and his debit card. Give me my phone, he demanded. I handed him his phone. You're a thief, he spat. I'm a collection agency, I corrected. Now, get out of my sight. If I see you on this property again, I'm calling the federales and telling them you're selling drugs. Dante didn't wait. He grabbed his suitcase and ran toward the taxi stand. He didn't even look at Monique. He jumped in a cab and sped off, leaving his girlfriend of 3 years standing in the lobby of a hotel she wasn't allowed to stay in. Monique looked at the floor. She looked small, defeated. He left me, she whispered. He was always going to leave you, Mo, I said, tucking the cash into my bra, the safest place on earth. He just waited until the bill came due. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, V. I'm so sorry. I ruined everything. I have no job. I have no apartment. I have no boyfriend. And now you hate me. I looked at her. I had my money back. I had my pound of flesh. I could leave her here. I could go back to the room, order a steak, and enjoy the silence. But then I remembered the text from her boss. We fired you for stealing tips. And the text from the landlord. Condemned. She was a mess. She was a liar. But she was my sister. And Mama would haunt me for eternity if I left her on a curb in Mexico. I sighed, a long, bone-deep exhale that rattled my ribs. Pick up your bag, I said. Where are we going? She sniffled. To the airport. No, I said. We're going back to room 402. Really? Her face lit up with pathetic hope. You're letting me stay? I'm letting you work, I corrected, pointing a finger in her face. You are not on vacation, Monique. You are on probation. I paid for a double occupancy room, so you have a bed. But for the next 3 days, you are my assistant. Assistant? Yes, I said. You are going to carry my bag. You are going to fetch my water. You are going to take my pictures. And when we get back to Atlanta, you are moving into my basement, the unfinished one with the concrete floor, and you are going to pay me rent. Real rent. Not sister rent. And you are going to get a job. A real job. If I catch you influencing or life coaching, I will put you out. Do you understand? Monique nodded frantically. Yes, V. Anything. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said, walking toward the elevator. Just get the bags. And if you ask for a drink with an umbrella in it, I will throw you off the balcony. We got into the elevator. Monique wiped her face and tried to fix her hair. V, she asked timidly. What? Since we're here and you have your nice suit on, can we take a picture? For your Facebook? To show everyone you're winning? I looked at her. I looked at my reflection in the elevator mirror. I looked tired, but I looked victorious. I pulled out my phone. I saw the notification from my bank. Balance $3,042.50. I smiled. Yes, I said. We can take a picture, but I have a better idea. What? Open Instagram, I said. I saw how many people were watching your live earlier when you were bragging. I think it's time they saw the sequel. The sequel? Yes, I said as the elevator doors opened to the hallway. We're going live, and you're going to tell them exactly how blessed you really are. The ring light was blinding, but not nearly as blinding as the realization that my family's dysfunction was apparently marketable content. I sat on the plush beige sofa of the junior suite at the Ryu Palace, wearing my linen blazer over a fresh blouse I had steamed myself in the bathroom. Monique sat across from me on a small ottoman, holding the phone steady. She wasn't wearing her neon bikini or her oversized sunglasses. She was wearing a plain white t-shirt I had bought her from the gift shop because her own clothes were deemed too unprofessional by management, me. Don't shake the camera, I ordered, adjusting my reading glasses. And if you sneeze, do it internally. Yes, V, Monique mumbled, her arms already trembling from holding the pose for 10 minutes of prep time. We are live in 3, 2. The screen lit up. The viewer count skyrocketed immediately. Apparently, the drama at the pool had made its way onto TikTok, and people were tuning in to see the aftermath. Hello, Instagram, I said, my voice steady as a mail sorting machine. You don't know me, but you know my money. My name is Viola Davis. I'm the family emergency Monique told you about. I'm the landlord she was fighting with. But mostly, I'm the bank. The comments flew by so fast they were a blur. Cabo Bay. The sister is here. At Scam Likely. Is she holding the phone? This is humiliating, lol. Where is Dante? I squinted at the screen. For those asking about Dante, he has been liquidated. He is currently in a taxi with his ego and a one-way ticket to obscurity. But we aren't here to talk about him. We are here to talk about accountability. I snapped my fingers. Monique leaned forward, her face appearing in the corner of the frame. She looked humbled. Stripped of her filters, her angles, and her pride, she just looked like a woman who had been caught red-handed. Tell them, I said. Monique swallowed hard, looking into the lens. Hi, guys. So the trip wasn't a contest, and I wasn't evicted. I lied to my sister to get the money. Boss babe for life, unfollowed. And, I prompted, and, Monique continued, her voice trembling, I spent her roof repair money on tequila, and now I'm working it off. That's right, I said, taking over the frame again. Monique is no longer a travel influencer. She is now my personal assistant. For the next 2 days, you will see Cabo through my eyes, the eyes of a woman who paid for it. We're going to review the buffet. We're going to rate the water pressure in the shower, and we are going to discuss the importance of an emergency fund that isn't dependent on lying to your relatives. I saw a comment pop up that caught my eye. Wait, this is hilarious. The repo auntie. We need to talk. Check your DMs, Travel Noir, verified account, 1 million followers. My business brain, honed by decades of union negotiations and budget management, pinged. All right, that's enough for now, I said. Monique, cut the feed. She ended the video. She dropped the phone on the couch and groaned, rubbing her arms. Can I go now? I'm hungry. You can go, I said, picking up the phone and opening the DMs, to the buffet. And bring me back a plate. Salmon, roasted vegetables, and fruit. No carbs. I'm watching my figure for my new career. Your new career? Go, I shoot her away. I open the message from Travel Noir. Hi, Viola. We've been watching this saga unfold all afternoon. The internet loves you. We're launching a campaign called Real Travel, Real Money, focused on budget travel and financial literacy. We'd love to sponsor a series of reels from you while you're there. We can offer $5,000 for 3 videos. $5,000. I sat back against the cushions. I did the math in my head instantly. That was the roof repair, $3,000, plus the cost of this trip, $800, plus a nice chunk of change for my trouble. I had already recovered my $3,000 from Dante, so this was pure profit. This was upgrade the shingles to the 30-year architectural kind money. I typed back, make it $6,000 and throw in a spa voucher. My back hurts from carrying this family. 3 minutes later, deal. We'll email the contract. I laughed, a deep, belly-shaking laugh that felt like release. Monique had tried to fake a lifestyle to get paid. I just had to be my grumpy, fiscally responsible self, and the check cleared. When Monique came back with the food, and she actually got the order right, probably out of fear, I told her the news. $6,000? Her jaw dropped. A piece of melon fell off her fork. V, that's amazing. We're rich. I raised an eyebrow, taking a bite of salmon. We are not rich. I am successful. You are an unpaid intern. But I'm the cameraman, she protested. I know how to edit. I know the trends. I looked at her. She was desperate. She was pathetic. But she was also right. I didn't know how to do a transition or add those little floating words on the screen. Fine, I said. Here is the deal. You film the videos, you edit them, you make me look good and thin. If the client is happy, I will apply $500 toward your rent when we get back to Atlanta. That means you won't have to pay me for the first month living in the basement. That's it? She whined. No cash? You owe me a debt of honor, Monique, I said sternly. You don't get cash, you get a roof. Take the deal. She slumped. Fine, I'll do it. For the next 2 days, the dynamic shifted. I didn't treat Monique cruelly, but I didn't treat her like a sister either. I treated her like an employee on a performance improvement plan. We filmed the reels. Reel 1. I showed how to use the hotel safe properly. This is where your passport goes, not under the mattress where the maid can find it. Reel 2. I explained why you never, ever travel without travel insurance, because sometimes your sister is a liability. Reel 3. A tutorial on how to spot a Dante, A man who travels on your dime while hiding his own stash. Monique edited them. She was actually good at it. It was the only time she seemed focused. She knew the angles, the lighting, the pacing. You have a good eye, I told her on Saturday night as we watched the sunset from the balcony. She looked up from the phone, surprised by the compliment. Thanks, V. I really wanted to be a content creator. I just thought I had to fake the lifestyle first to get the followers. I thought nobody wanted to see the struggle. You don't fake the lifestyle, Monique, I said. Sipping a sparkling water, I still wasn't drinking alcohol. I needed my wits about me. You build the lifestyle, brick by brick, dollar by dollar. Faking it is just lying with better lighting. People respect the build, they despise the lie. She nodded, looking out at the ocean. I messed up bad, didn't I? You committed fraud against your own blood, I said bluntly. Yes, you messed up bad. Do you think Mama would be ashamed of me? As the question hung in the humid air, I looked at my baby sister. She was 42 years old, but in that moment, she looked 6. Mama wouldn't be ashamed, I said softly. She'd be disappointed, and Mama's disappointment was always worse than her belt. Monique wiped a tear. I'm gonna fix it, V. I promise. We'll see, I said. Talk is cheap. Rent is due on the 1st. Sunday morning arrived. We checked out. The receptionist looked terrified of me and processed the paperwork in record time. We took a taxi to the airport. I made Monique handle the bags. At the gate, I saw Dante. He was sitting 5 rows away, wearing a hoodie, looking miserable. He saw us and quickly looked down at his phone. He didn't try to approach. Good, he knew the rules. The flight back to Atlanta was quiet. Monique slept. I sat awake, watching the clouds, calculating my net worth. I had left Atlanta with $42.50. I was returning with my $3,000 savings restored, an extra $6,000 from the brand deal pending, and my wayward sister in custody. It was a profitable weekend. We landed in Atlanta at 9 p.m. It was raining again. Of course, I drove us to my house in Decatur. The sight of my little brick bungalow usually brought me peace, but tonight, as I pulled into the driveway, I felt a twinge of anxiety. The roof. We walked inside. The house smelled musty. I walked to the hallway. Drip, drip, drip. The bucket was full. The water stain on the ceiling had spread. It looked like a bruise. Oh no, Monique whispered, staring at the ceiling. V, I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, I said, putting down my keys. Grab the mop. We spent the next hour cleaning up the water. Monique didn't complain. She got on her hands and knees and scrubbed. When we were done, I led her to the basement door. Okay, I said. This is it. I opened the door. My basement isn't a dungeon, but it isn't a suite at the Ryu Palace either. It's unfinished. Concrete floors, exposed beams. It stays cool in the summer, but it's dark. I had an old pull-out couch down there and a small TV from the 90s. It's cozy, Monique said, trying to be brave. It's dry, I corrected. And it's free, for this month. I handed her a set of sheets and a pillow. You start looking for a job tomorrow, I said. I don't care if it's Burger King or a salon. You get a job, you save your money, and you pay me $500 a month starting next month. If you miss a payment, you're out. If you steal food, you're out. If Dante comes over, I call the police. Clear? Clear? She whispered. She walked down the stairs. She looked like she was walking into prison. I closed the door. I went upstairs to my bedroom. I sat on my bed, my own bed, with my orthopedic pillow. I felt the exhaustion of the last 4 days crash over me. I pulled out my phone. The deposit from Travel Noir had hit my pending transactions. I opened the contact for Miller Roofing. I sent a text. Mr. Miller, this is Viola Davis. I have the cash. Can you start tomorrow? He replied instantly. We had a cancellation. We can be there at 8 a.m., I smiled. I was about to put the phone down when I saw a notification from Instagram. It wasn't a comment. It was a DM from someone I didn't follow. Hulu casting. Hi, Viola. We saw the Hasharipo Auntie clips. We're casting for a new reality series about family interventions and financial disputes. We think you and your sister have an incredible dynamic. Would you be interested in a Zoom call? I stared at the screen. Reality TV. I thought about the peace and quiet of my job at the post office. I thought about the pension. I thought about my dignity. Then I thought about the water stain on the ceiling. I thought about the fact that even with the new roof, the kitchen needed remodeling. And I thought about Monique, downstairs on a lumpy couch, needing a direction in life. If she wanted to be famous so bad, maybe I should let her. but on my terms. I typed back, I'm listening. But my rate just went up. I put the phone on the nightstand. I turned off the light. Downstairs, I heard Monique moving around, settling in. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where she was. I knew she wasn't being evicted. I knew she wasn't hungry. And I knew she wasn't scamming anyone. She was safe and I was solvent. I closed my eyes. The sound of the rain was still there, but tomorrow the roofers were coming. And tomorrow, the cameras might be coming too. The sound of 20-ounce hammers hitting fresh plywood at 7 a.m. might be noise pollution to some, but to me, it sounded like the Hallelujah chorus. I stood on my front lawn in my bathrobe, holding a steaming mug of coffee, watching the crew from Miller Roofing tear off the rotting shingles that had caused me so much grief. Every thwack of the nail gun was a receipt. Every sheet of waterproofing was a testament to the fact that I didn't just survive the betrayal, I monetized it. I had lent my sister rent money, saw her on vacation the next day, and in less than a week, I had turned that vacation into a business expense, reclaimed my funds, and launched a media empire from the lobby of a Mexican resort. Monique stumbled out onto the porch, squinting in the morning sun. She was wearing a pair of old sweatpants and a t-shirt that said USPS on the back. One of my old ones I had demoted to a sleep shirt. She looked tired. The basement floor didn't have the same bounce as a hotel mattress. "Do they have to be so loud?" she groaned, rubbing her eyes. "That is the sound of solvency, Monique," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "And you better get used to loud noises. Your shift at the sorting facility starts in 2 hours." That's right. I didn't just put her in the basement. I got her a job. Not a glamorous job. I called in a favor with Dave at the distribution center. Monique was now a casual mail handler. She spent 8 hours a day lifting 50-pound sacks of mail and tossing them onto conveyor belts. It was hot, dusty, nail-breaking work. It was exactly what she needed. "I can't feel my arms from yesterday," she whined. "Good," I said. "That means you're earning your keep. Coffee is in the pot. Don't be late. I'm driving today, and the bus doesn't wait for passengers who oversleep." I went inside to get dressed, but I wasn't putting on my uniform just yet. I had a Zoom call at 9 a.m. I sat at my kitchen table, the one under the newly dry ceiling, and opened my laptop. The executives from Hulu were punctual. 3 faces popped up on the screen, 2 women with sleek bobs and a man with expensive glasses. "Viola," the man beamed. "We are so excited to meet you. The metrics on your repo anti-clips are insane. The engagement is through the roof." "My roof is currently being fixed," I said deadpan. "So let's talk about engagement fees." They pitched me the show. They wanted a docuseries. Family fraud. They wanted to follow me as I helped other families confront the moochers, the scammers, and the borrowers in their lives. They wanted Monique to be the co-star, the reformed scammer who spots the lies because she told them herself. "We see it as a redemption arc," the woman said. "Monique learns from you. You dispense tough love. It's heartwarming but spicy." "I don't do heartwarming," I said, adjusting my camera. "I do accountability. If I do this show, I want producer credits. I want veto power on the edits. And I want the checks for Monique to go into a trust that I control until she proves she can handle a debit card without booking a flight to Cabo." The executives exchanged looks. They weren't used to the talent negotiating the back end. "That's unusual," the man said. "So is finding your sister in a pool in Mexico with your mortgage payment," I countered. "Do we have a deal, or should I call Netflix? They DM'd me 10 minutes ago." They scrambled. "Deal. We have a deal." The contract was signed 3 days later. The next 6 months were a whirlwind, but not the kind that spins you out of control, the kind that generates electricity. We filmed on weekends. I kept my job at the post office because I needed the pension and the health insurance, but my side hustle became a national phenomenon. The show, The Audit with Auntie V, premiered in the fall. The first episode featured a grandmother whose grandson was using her Social Security to buy sneakers. I walked into that house, repossessed the Jordans right off his feet, sold them on eBay, and filled the woman's fridge with groceries. The internet went wild. Monique was surprisingly useful. She had an eye for the con. When a cousin tried to cry about medical bills, Monique spotted the new acrylic nails and the fresh weave. "She ain't sick, V," Monique whispered to me on camera. "That's a $200 set. Ask to see the invoice." We were a team, a dysfunctional, bickering, effective team. And then the inevitable happened. Dante resurfaced. It was the night of the season finale viewing party. We had rented out a small bar in Decatur. The roof of my house was done, the kitchen was remodeled, and I was wearing a sequined dress that fit me perfectly. Monique looked great, too. She had muscles in her arms from throwing mailbags, and she paid for her own dress with money she earned. We were toasting to the ratings when the door opened. Dante walked in. He looked rough, he was thinner, and he wasn't wearing gold chains anymore. He was holding a manila envelope. The room went quiet. The cameras, which were filming the party for a special, swiveled to him. "Viola," he said, puffing out his chest. "Monique, you have some nerve," I said, putting down my champagne. "Did you run out of countries to flee to?" "I'm here to serve you," Dante said, slapping the envelope on a table. "I'm suing for defamation of character and for likeness rights. You used my face in your videos. You made me look like a clown. I want my cut. I want 50% of the show." Monique stepped forward. I put a hand out to stop her. "Let me handle this," I said. I picked up the envelope. I didn't open it. I looked at Dante. "Dante," I said, my voice projecting to the back of the room. "You think you have a case?" "My lawyer says I do," he sneered. "I'm a public figure now because of you. I deserve compensation." "Okay," I said. "Let's talk about compensation." I pulled out my phone. I opened an app I hadn't used in months. "Do you remember the BetMGM card?" I asked. "The one you drained?" "Yeah, and you stole $3,000 of it," he shouted. "Actually," I said. "I did a little digging into how you funded that account. You see, when we started filming the show, I hired a forensic accountant, just to be safe." Dante's confidence faltered. So I continued. "It turns out that seed capital wasn't yours. You stole it from your grandmother's nursing home fund, Mrs. Etta James, right? 82 years old? Living in a facility in Macon?" The room gasped. "That's a lie," Dante yelled, but he was sweating. "I have the bank records, Dante," I said. "I have the transfer dates. You stole $5,000 from an old woman who can't walk, and you used it to go to Mexico." I took a step closer. "Now, here is my counteroffer. You can sue me. We can go to court, and I will present this evidence to the judge. Or you can turn around, walk out that door, and never mention the name Davis again. And if you do, I won't just sue you. I will call the district attorney in Macon and hand them this file." Dante looked at the envelope in my hand. He looked at the cameras. He looked at Monique, who was looking at him with pure disgust. "You're a witch," he hissed. "I'm a supervisor," I corrected. "We deliver. Now get out." Dante grabbed his envelope and ran. The bar erupted in cheers. Monique hugged me. "Did you really hire a forensic accountant?" "No," I whispered in her ear, "but I did call his grandma. She told me everything. Never bluff a bluffer, baby girl." We went back to the party. Later that night, I sat on my front porch. The new roof looked beautiful in the moonlight. The house was quiet. Monique was downstairs in her apartment. She had fixed it up nicely with thrift store finds. She was still paying rent. She was still working the post office job. She hated it, but she respected it. I checked my bank account. The balance wasn't $42,550. It was enough to retire. It was enough to travel. It was enough to never worry about rain again. But I knew I wouldn't retire. Not yet. I looked at the text from Hulu, Season 2 greenlit, higher budget. I smiled. I had lent my sister rent money. It was the worst investment I ever made, and the best return I ever got. I took a sip of my tea. "Lesson learned," I whispered to the night. "Keep the receipts, and always, always verify the location." I stood up and went inside, locking the door behind me. The storm had passed, the house was dry, and for the first time in a long time, the foundation was solid.